The Helsmiths of Hashut have just released in Age of Sigmar to much further. Now, I don't play Age of Sigmar, but I do love Chaos Dwarfs, and I have this big box of 3D printed Chaos Dwarf pieces that I originally printed up to play Old World with. And whilst that's still my plan, I had a cool idea. Hello everybody, and welcome to Weekend Wargaming. My name's Alex, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me today. In this video, we're going to continue the project we started in my last video, where we tried to make the Helsmiths of Hashut box out of these 3D printed retro sculpts. So join with me today as we paint Fabelzel's Megabull. So getting started today, we're going to prime our Megabull with fine black from AK, and then we'll give a heavy zenithal over the top with Mephiston red from Citadel. And those are going to establish our base layers for us before we start. Coming in with our first highlight, as we already have our base tones established on the skin, we're going to use Evil Sunz Scarlet, and we're going to paint this over all of the skin on the raised areas, leaving the dark Mephiston base coat in the shadows and the recesses. Now, as there is quite a lot of skin on this guy, this is going to take a while, so just settle in, relax, put on something nice to listen to, and enjoy yourself. Next up, we're going to take Scarlet Red from AK Interactive's 3rd gen line, and we're going to do a secondary highlight here. So just like we did the first, every raised bit of skin, but this time on a slightly smaller area. Now, if you want a really smooth effect, what you can do is blend these layers using multiple glazes. However, for me, I like the older, bolder style of just bold highlights. So that's what we're going to do here. And again, we're going to go around on all of the skin areas, so this is going to take a while. Our next step is going to be to take Steel Legion Drab, and we're going to paint this over the horns. Now at this point I should have also painted the fingernails, but I missed that. So you could do that here as well, but you'll see later on when we do. So the next thing I do is take Black Legion Contrast from Citadel, and I carefully paint in the eyes. Now this is going to form our base for when we actually paint in the whites of the eyes later. As well as this, in a moment I'm going to go around and I'm going to paint in all of the mouth, including the teeth, and all of the jewellery on his face. This will give us a nice, even base coat to work from when we put on our metallics later. As you can see here, when I paint the mouth, I leave the lips and just paint all the insides between the teeth and the teeth themselves. We're later going to come in and clean those up. And as you can see here, we have some nice fresh base coats. Next thing we'll do is we're going to take Smoke Black from AK Interactive's 3rd gen line, and we're going to paint this on the hair. So that's the mohawk, and then also around his hooves. Following on from this, we're going to take English Grey, also from AK Interactive, and we're going to highlight their hair. Now, this is actually quite stark a contrast and a bit brighter for the first highlight than I intended, but we stuck with it anyway. And just like how we painted the skin before, put this on the uppermost surfaces, leaving that smoke black in the shadows. Following on from this, I decided I didn't want to highlight each individual hair, so I came in with a small dry brush, again with that English grey, and just lightly dry brushed over the mohawk and over his hooves.
Once we're happy with the hair, we're going to move on to our next highlighting step, which is going to be painting the horns. Now there's very clearly defined details here, so taking our deck tan, just carefully highlight the raised areas, leaving the Steel Legion drab in the recesses. This is going to make the horns stick out nice and bright and give us some nice clear contrast when we're stood 6 feet away from this thing on the tabletop. Now we've got our eye in by painting the horns, we're going to go for some even finer details on the teeth. Now I recommend taking a small detail brush here, and with our white from AK Interactive, we're going to very carefully go over and just paint the teeth, ensuring that we leave that black in the recesses so we get the nice contrasted details here. Now if you do spill over with the white like I've just done, it's no problem. Just move on while you've still got paint on your brush, paint some of the other teeth, and then you can just come back in with a very small amount of that Black Legion and just line the detail in. Once you're happy with the teeth, we're going to paint the eyes. And how we always paint the eyes is we've got our black base coat, and then we're going to come in just inside the black line and we're going to paint in the whites of the eyes. If you do spill over, again you can just repaint over with the black and then come back in with the white once it's dried. When it comes time to dot in the pupils, we're going to focus these towards the bottom of the eyes, and we're not going to paint a full circle because we'll end up giving our model crazy eyes. Instead, what we do is paint in half the pupil just at the bottom, and you'll see in a moment that that looks really good. It's quite hard to film painting eyes, so I apologise that you can't see it quite clearly here. And there you go, nice menacing eyes, just painting half the pupil at the bottom.
Future Alex here, just checking in to say if you're enjoying what you're seeing so far, please hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps me to grow and to get these videos seen by more people. I'm super grateful for all of you that have subscribed so far, and normally when I post videos I get quite a few comments on there with you guys interacting, and I really enjoy that, so thank you so much. Anyway, all that being said, let's get back to the video.
And with that call to action out of the way, let's start with our metallics. So for this, I'm going to use my favourite goldy bronzy colour of Retributor armour from Citadel. And we're going to paint the nose ring and the earrings. I also realised later that this guy actually has a couple of nipple rings, so you can go ahead and paint those at the same time too. Just be careful here to leave the black in the most centre of the ring to give us a natural shadow. You can see here he's looking mega. Up next then, we're going to start painting the wooden handles of everything, and for that we're going to use Mornfang Brown from Citadel, and we're just going to base coat all of the handles of his weapons and of his whip. And just be careful here not to spill over onto your nice skin, but if you do, as always, you can just touch it up. Whilst we're here, I also decided to do the fabric of the whip in the same Mornfang colour. Nice and easy. Now, I was in a bit of a rush here, and originally I wasn't going to use any washes on this model, but we went ahead and did it anyway. So, Agrex Earthshade over all the areas that you've just painted with your Mornfang Brown. Just make sure it doesn't pool up anywhere too heavily. If it does, just dry off your brush and wick away the excess. And then once you've done that, Black Legion from Citadel, and we're going to paint in the hooves. Okay, now for our leathers. So to begin, we're going to take Rhinox hide from Citadel and carefully again paint on all of our fabrics here. So you've got his leather wrist guards and his belt. And to highlight these leathers, we're going to take the Mornfang Brown that's still wet on our palette, and we are just going to run the side of our brush over the edges of all the leather areas like the belt and the wrist guards, just to give us a nice crisp highlight. And then to add a little bit more visual interest to these areas, we're going to take that Mornfang Brown again, and we're just going to wick it up and down in the middle of the belts here. So we want to leave that original Rhinox hide between the top and the bottom edges. So we're just going to put this in the middle in that up and down motion, and that's going to give us some texture. Then we're going to start highlighting the ropes. So we've got the rope around his wrist and then the rope of the whip. And to do that, we're going to take Steel Legion Drab and just like we highlight anything else, paint it on the upward-most edges, leaving the dark base coats in the recesses. For our silver metallics, we're going to take gunmetal from AK and we're going to paint this metal loincloth, and then we're going to go around and pick out all of the rivets on the leather areas like the belt and the wrist guards. After this, we'll paint the blades of the axes and the spikes of the club, as well as the end of the whip and the metal casing at the back of the whip's handle. Once that's dried, we're going to come in with our Nuln oil from Citadel and we're going to wash all of those areas. Now you can see that I also painted the belt buckle here with the gunmetal, but later I'm going to come in and change that to Retributor armor. So you don't need to do that now if you don't want to. However, if you like it silver, keep it silver. It's your model. Once our Nuln oil has dried, we're going to take Grey Knight Steel from Citadel and we're going to highlight all of those silver metallic areas. Just the same as we've done this before, on the upward-most facing surfaces, leaving that original base coat and the wash in the recesses. And just go around, take your time here and pick out all of these details. As I mentioned earlier, I decided that I wanted this belt buckle to be gold in the end, so I came back in with the Retributor armour. Whilst that was drying, I busted out the airbrush and fed it with some Black Legion contrast mixed 50-50 with airbrush thinner. This I applied all over the base to re-establish our nice black tones of the original prime. Now, if you don't have an airbrush, don't worry, you could just do this with a normal brush, but you still want to water that down so it's nice and thin as you apply it. So whilst that's drying, we're going to quickly come in with Agrax Earthshade and we're going to wash the belt buckle that we just did. And it's at this point that I realised I forgot to paint the fingernails. So the same way that we painted the horns, we're going to take Steel Legion Drab from Citadel and apply our base coats, and then once we're happy with those and they're dried, we're going to come back in with Deck Tan from AK and we're going to highlight them the exact same way. So just at the root of the nail, leaving a little bit of that Steel Legion for some contrast, and then highlighting up towards the edge. And now our Megabull is looking absolutely fantastic. All we need to do to finish him off is give him a great looking base. And that's going to be really easy here. So we based this guy with cork so we could come in and do this exact step. And what I've got here is a large dry brush loaded up with Mechanica Standard Grey, wicked most of it off on a piece of kitchen paper, and I'm just dry brushing over all the edges to pull out the details of the cork here. Our next step is a lighter dry brush of English Grey from AK. Now we're going to build this up over a few layers, so in a moment you'll see how bright it will become. Now to move on to our lava effect, and this is actually easier than it looks. So to begin, we're going to take Mephiston Red, water it down so it's nice and runny, and we're going to apply this to all of the areas of the base that are not touched by the cork. We left those exposed for this exact reason. And what we're going to do is going to start adding in extra reds and oranges, and we're going to wet blend these together. So the first part of that is going to be taking Evil Sun's Scarlet, again from Citadel, keeping it nice and wet and moving quickly here, blending it into that original Mephiston red and leaving the Mephiston in the deepest areas here. So as we work brighter with the colours, we're going to get more towards the edge. So same again now, but this time with Burning Ore from Army Painter's Fanatic range, and just on a slightly thinner area, we're going to come in and blend into those last two layers. Now as you keep going here, your original layers are going to start drying, but that's no problem at all. Our next colour will be Jokero Orange from Citadel, and just like we've done before, we're going to highlight the edge in a little bit smaller surface area than the previous colours. What we're going to do slightly differently this time is we're going to almost stipple the brush up and down just to give us a bit of texture variation on these flat surfaces. Our final colour here is going to be Glowing Inferno, and we're going to use this as an edge highlight. And just like we did before, stipple it up and down, but only on the absolute edge of the base. Now to finish up our lava effect, we're going to load up our dry brush with the Burning Ore that's still on our wet palette, and we're going to lightly dry brush this over the lower facing surfaces of the rock. This is going to give us a really cheap and easy OSL type effect, giving us the glow from the lava onto the rocks. Now it wouldn't be Chaos without skulls, and we have a few of those on our base. So to give them a base coat, we're going to take Deck Tan from AK Interactive and just carefully block those in. Once the Deck Tan's dry, take Skeleton Horde Contrast from Citadel and paint that all over in nice thick coats to give us that lovely aged bone colour. And to finish the skulls off, a nice light dry brushing of Deck Tan. The last step in painting this model is to re-establish the black base rim, and for that we're going to use the best tool in the business, and that is of course Black Legion Contrast from Citadel. Just work carefully here in a few thin coats. Now you don't need to do this, but I like my models to be really matte, so I'm just using ultra matte varnish from AK with my airbrush, and I'm just painting it all over the entire model. This is going to protect the paint, and it's going to give us a nice matte finish. And once you've done all of that, you'll get something that looks like this.
And we're done. Well, in fact, we were actually kind of done 2 weeks ago. It's just taken me a really long time to edit this video. I'm very sorry for how long it's taken to get it out. It's just been a hectic few weeks and I haven't had time to edit. But thank you so much for sticking around to the end. If you like what you've seen today, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. It really helps me to grow and to get these videos seen by more people. As you can see from behind me, it's almost Christmas time and the next video will be Christmas themed. But if there's anything else you'd like to see me do, please leave it in the comments below. I do read and reply to all of them, and I'd love to hear some project ideas from you. I have a few cool ideas of what I want to do in the next year, but until we get there, stay safe, be good to one another, and happy wargaming.